Jenny Walterman, and this is my EDL854 Module 12 case study presentation. Key people involved in this case would be the principal, Carl Santos. I am assuming this role for this exercise. Mr. Bearley, who is the president of the Briardale Foundation. Mr. Morley, who is the president of the foundation at another school that is not named. The Briardale Foundation committee members, who are referenced as a whole in a group. The Briardale Elementary School Site Curriculum Committee. Excuse me. Raffle ticket purchase participants from the community, an anonymous tipster in the community, and then the sheriff. Key facts in this case involve Briardale Elementary School, where I am the principal, and we are a K-5 school with a total of about 600 students. We are one of 6 elementary schools in the community and also have 2 middle schools and 1 high school. We are centrally located within the city in a diverse community, and we host a majority of the various community events throughout the city because we have the capacity to hold up to 1,000 people in our building, and it's just centrally located. We have a high retention rate of staff, very low turnover. The district paid curriculum for our school district focuses on the basic skills and educational instruction. So all supplementary curriculum subjects are funded through the school foundation and are paid for through fundraising. So then that brings in the Briardale Foundation, which is our school-specific foundation. It's run by a board. It's chaired by a parent representative, and that was Mr. Bearley, who was recently elected. And the foundation hosts fundraising to supplement curriculum based on the school site curriculum committee needs. So that's a separate committee. And then the competitive fundraising with other elementary school foundations has kind of grown organically over time, with the schools kind of competing with each other to see who can raise the most money. In the past, some confusion regarding how funding will be utilized was mentioned in the scenario, so I put it down here, but they didn't really go in depth about that aspect of the situation. Historically, the foundation has supported the arts, music, and foreign language curriculum, and that has been entirely funded by the foundation and not through district funds. And then the foundation, typically the way it works is the foundation will consult with the site curriculum committee, and that committee is led by a teacher in the building, and they will discuss with each other, and then they will make a recommendation on how they feel like the supplementary curriculum programming should be funded, and when they hand the money over to the principal, me, to disperse. So in the scenario of this case, I'm the principal, and I met with Mr. Bearley because he was a new chairman, and I provided an orientation and gave him information on his role as president and fundraising obligations. I informed him of his responsibility to meet with the school site curriculum committee for informed suggestions and ideas for supplementary curriculum program needs. Mr. Bearley, the president of Briardale Foundation, he is new to the role. He's a Harvard graduate, a proud Harvard graduate. He seems to be very competitive and achievement-driven, which is great because he's motivated to raise more money than ever before, which benefits our students. And he wants to provide innovative curriculum programs in addition to existing programming. In a self-imposed intrinsic competition with Mr. Morley. So it seems like there's some competition going there between the 2 chairs of the elementary schools. And Mr. Morley is also a former Harvard grad, a fraternity brother of Mr. Bearley's. And Mr. Morley defeated Bearley in a collegiate class president election previously when they were in college. I don't know that there's any more to that scenario, but I do mention that because it was written down. Anyway, the Briardale Foundation fundraiser. Let's get into that. So Mr. Bearley came up with the idea to do raffle ticket sales in exchange for a chance to win cash. And this idea generated from his successful frat days. It was one of the best fundraisers the frat ever had, and so he researched it and strategized it, and the foundation committee members were in support of the idea and his strategy, and subsequently went about selling tickets. At the night of the event, the sheriff appeared, and Mr. Bearley was arrested in front of everyone prior to dispensing the funds and drawing names. Um, and he was arrested based on an anonymous tip from somebody in the community. So Mr. Barely was booked and released, but later convicted for hosting a misdemeanor crime of raffle for cash event, which essentially is gambling, and given probation. It was determined that this was an illegal activity, and it was unknown to all foundation members except for obviously the person, whoever that was, that tipped off the police. And then Mr. Santos, myself, I'm personally embarrassed, and there's a budget debacle, and it ended up on the front page of the local newspaper, and it's leaving a negative mark on myself, the Briardale Foundation, the school, fundraising efforts that the school may have, and the district as a whole. So legal issues here, obviously the cash for raffle violation, it is a legal issue because he was arrested for it. It's considered gambling, and the activity was considered in violation of the law. Ethical conflicts are a few. It's compromised Briardale Foundation and their reputation within the community. It's caused integrity harm to Mr. Santos, myself, and the foundation, and Mr. Barely in the school. A lot of integrity issues there. And then also what happens to all the money that was raised from ticket raffle sales but wasn't dispersed. So one synthesized statement is as follows. Mr. Barely, president of the Briardale School Foundation, along with the principal, Mr. Santos, and School Foundation Committee hosted a raffle for cash community fundraising event that turned out to be illegal gambling and resulted in Mr. Barely being convicted of a misdemeanor, and the School Community Foundation publicly embarrassed and compromised with an unethical fundraising debacle. So, summarizing again, people, place, and programming, and then I'll briefly discuss what the unknowns are that still need to be determined. So, people, Mr. Santos, Mr. Barely, the Briardale Foundation, Briardale Site Curriculum Committee, Mr. Morley, the community members, the anonymous tipster, and the sheriff. This is in an undisclosed city and state. We don't know where that is. They don't tell us. But it is located, for the most part, at the Briardale Elementary School and the surrounding community. The programming, the fundraising has historically supported art, music, and foreign language. The foundation financially supports supplemental curriculum programming, and the supplemental curriculum is based on Building Site Council recommendations. So what are the unknown facts? What are things that I still need to know? Did Mr. Barely and the foundation go rogue? Did they ignore the training and the information I provided to them? Was there specific guidance in the fundraising training addressing this specific situation? The scenario doesn't tell us, so we don't really know the answers to those. And then I also need to know what the site council deems necessary for supplemental curriculum. Like, what are the most urgent needs? I need to know that. What type of additional innovative curriculum was Mr. Barely planning to offer that was driving his goals for raising so much money? And are those things that the site council even thinks are important at this time? What happened with the funds raised from the raffle, and is the ticket purchases traceable? I need to know that information so I know how to move forward. And then I also need to know, what does the superintendent school board think about this? What's their response? And what are the prior confusions regarding how foundation funds were spent in the past? Do we have some bad blood or bad feelings between certain people in our foundation and the surrounding community that need to be resolved or networked in some way? What is the history between Morley and Barely, and what does that have to do with the scenario? I was unsure where to go with that information. Okay, so then reviewing our priorities, potential damage, and who are the key stakeholders. The potential damage to myself, Mr. Santos, is my integrity and my ability to be seen as ethical with funds management for curriculum and for the building, and a lack of faith, potentially from the community and school staff. Mr. Barely's potential damage is lack of faith by the foundation committee and the community, and also the legal recourse that he's facing for his misdemeanor conviction. And then Briardale Elementary, lack of faith and standing in the community and the committee. The lack of needed curriculum and supplies for our students, which are normally provided by the foundation funds. And then the school board potential damage by loss of integrity and good faith with the community. Potential damage to students would be their lack of equity in education due to lost funding, and that would impact their curriculum and supplemental programming. Key stakeholders I've mentioned before: Mr. Santos, Mr. Barely, Burrdale Foundation, Burrdale Site Council, Curriculum Committee members, district leadership, school board, Burrdale students and staff. Could this conflict be damaging to the community? Absolutely, yes. It could affect the equitable education for students, and it definitely affects the lack of faith in future program fundraising between our school and other schools in the district and the community, for them to have faith in our fundraising. Okay, so possible solutions. The first one is to take no action at all and let the bad feelings and impressions play out and let them naturally die down with the next news cycle. Don't recommend that. And then option two is to take some action, meet with the school board, district legal counsel, the chief financial officer, meet with them as soon as possible or immediately to determine potential areas of vulnerability for the district. Return the funds to the raffle participants as soon as possible. Get more information about if district policy was violated, revise and add to the policies regarding fundraising efforts. Meet with the site council and foundation members simultaneously as soon as possible. Probably draft a letter of apology with district legal counsel, and consult with public relations about an appropriate response to this to help mitigate community bad feelings. And then revise the fundraising training orientation materials and add and edit as necessary. Okay, so pros and cons for each of these. There are no pros to not taking any action. I just think it's absolutely a really bad idea. And then the cons to taking no action, there's several. Not taking any action is going to indicate a lack of support for my community and my elementary school, their students and staff. It would not help improve school community relations to do nothing. It would really look bad to our school board and foundation for me to be so indifferent about what's happening. It would also diminish the supplemental programming and be detrimental to students and staff, and possibly they could lose their jobs or resources with like zero response from me. That would be bad. Pros to taking action is that meeting with school board, CFO, district legal counsel would help to determine direction and taking personal responsibility in my leadership role. It would be definitely a pro to try to return funds immediately to raffle participants as soon as possible. It would help mitigate and neutralize negative PR impact. Getting more information about if the district policy was violated could help provide direction for revisions or adding policies regarding fundraising efforts and not violating city and state law in the future. Meeting with site council and foundation members simultaneously to determine the most urgent needs for upcoming year and ask for more details on how this all came about and suggesting alternate fundraising that is transparent and open to the community while consulting Kansas laws on fundraising would definitely be a pro. Drafting a letter of apology would help temper the community response that is negative, and future involvement with the foundation fundraisers could possibly increase. Revising the fundraising training orientation materials would be a pro because it would only serve to improve future processes that support our school improvement and student development. Cons to taking this action is that getting more information about the district policies might present more ethical and legal issues on the part of myself or the community members that need to be revised or added to, and could maybe open up more scenarios for ways that district policy was violated. And then also another con would be if I do draft a letter or do some sort of formal apology to the community, it could fuel more negative community response, because sometimes people are like that. They just, any effort can be backfired and viewed critically if somebody is just choosing to be critical. And then the loss of student programming and jobs, including myself, it could be something that could definitely happen. But also, I guess I should say that that could happen either way, whether I take action or not. So I believe it's better to take action. So that kind of segues into the next one, which is that I believe the second option is the best option, to take action and try to recover or improve the community faith in our schools and the foundation in an attempt to restore and repair trust in our fundraising efforts for the school. And that will help provide better opportunities for our students, and it's in the best interest of the students to try to repair this scenario as much as we can. And then implementing the decision, my steps are going to go along very closely with my proposal of taking action. And so I probably won't read through every single bullet point, but first I would meet with the school board, district CFO, and district legal counsel, try to understand and demonstrate the capacity to evaluate, develop, and advocate a plan that supports school improvement and student development, make sure that I'm taking personal responsibility and demonstrating effective leadership. Second, I would return funds immediately to the raffle participants per instructions and the advice of the CFO. Third, I would revise and add policies regarding fundraising efforts not violating city and state law. Fourth, I would meet with site council and foundation members simultaneously, all of us at the same time in the same room, to determine what the most urgent needs are for the upcoming year. Because if we're lacking funds, I need to know where's the loss, where's the stopgap that I need to try to problem solve. Also, suggesting alternate fundraising goals, and try to come up with a plan that is transparent and open to the community. Also, I would encourage the committees to consult Kansas state laws on fundraising, and also utilize resources from Parent Booster USA to ensure equity in fundraising. And there might be aspects to a fundraising plan that they think is great that has some negative side effects that I want them to consider on the front end rather than being caught blindsided. Fifth, I would propose alternate fundraising campaign to try and recover from the financial loss of the failed fundraiser. Sixth, draft out letter of apology with district legal counsel, consulting with public relations about appropriate public response. And then seventh, I would revise the fundraising training orientation materials to add and edit as necessary according to state law requirements regarding school fundraising. And I would also consult the Educational Law Association on the appropriate fundraising guidelines in order to ensure that we have covered all the bases and listed everything that helps have a successful fundraising campaign that doesn't put anyone into jeopardy and promotes the current and future success and well-being of each student. These are my references for some of the key points that I cited, and thanks for watching.